Hello everybody, my name is Chikirza, and welcome to another art journal video. Today the plan is to paint some flowers. Yes, I know, I tried painting flowers in my last video and it turned into an abstract face in the end. But today I'm going to give these flowers another go. To start off with, I picked out two colors to use for my background. A neon pink and a purple acrylic paint. I'm going to speed up this video to keep from taking up too much of your time, but I'll talk through my process at each step in case you want to try creating a page like this. Keep in mind that this is me experimenting and I'm still learning, so there will be mistakes along the way. And this is one of them. I used way too much paint. So, I used an old dried up baby wipe that I had from another project and wiped some of the paint off the page. In hindsight, I really liked the streaks that were showing up on the paper. So because the purple was still somewhat at that tacky stage, I grabbed a big wide brush, wet it, and tried reactivating some of the paint, just trying to blend out some of those edges. With it still wet, I go in with the neon pink again, trying to get a nice good blend. And I ended up with a streak right across that purple, and I really liked it. But I wasn't sure if it was going to stay once I dried it or not, so I gave it a quick dry to see if it was going to disappear. I find neon paints sometimes go very transparent depending on what you're painting them on. So again, using that neon pink, grab my brush and try adding more. And I really want to get more of those neon pink stripes through that purple section. And I intensified the color in the corners as well. I didn't have to add purple to the pink because that happened naturally when I was wiping off the paint in the first place when I put on too much on the paper. So that worked to my advantage. It almost looked like a marble type of effect. I really liked it. Making sure that the underside of my page is dry here as well. And if you find that your paper starts to curl, just bend it back. Now I have no plan for this page. I just felt like the background needed a little bit more something, and I felt like doing some splatter. So I grabbed a toothbrush, put some paint on my finger, and splattered it across the page. Now, I have to admit to you, at this point I thought, oh, that looks like a galaxy. I should do some sort of a galaxy picture. But no. We're not looking for anything else. We're going to do flowers today. So I'm picking out a brush to use, and I picked out this filbert brush. Now before I started doing the flowers, I thought maybe I should put some sort of a center point as to where I'm going to have the petals come in towards. Let's start off with 3 centers. I could always add more. I didn't know what size or what shape I was going to do these petals in. I was debating using purple maybe, but no, let's go ahead and try the yellow. If I don't like it, it's acrylic paint and I can just paint over top of it. Not like I've never done that before. So I'm starting off with the brush pressed down fairly hard and then lifting it up and turning it so that it ends up narrow when I get towards the center of the flower area. The petals aren't all the same size, they're not evenly spaced apart. You know, sort of like how they are in nature. Decide to try filling in some of those spaces. But now the flower was looking very flat. and I wanted to add a little bit more to it. So I grabbed a bright orange and did every second petal in the orange to see how that would look. And I like the way the orange and the yellow and the purple and the hot pink are all playing on that paper. It's super bright, super vibrant, super happy, and it matches the mood I was in today. Now my thought was, I want the center flower to maybe be different. I mean, the same type of petals, but maybe it could be a different flower. So I decided that the center one would maybe be yellow and white, and the other ones would be yellow and orange. And I'm playing around here. You can see I'm dipping a little bit of the end of the brush in the orange with the white, and then drawing the petals. And it's giving me this really nice effect. And now that flower, I like the ones with the white and the orange, but now it's making the other flowers just kind of look really flat. And at this point here, I didn't like how transparent those yellow petals were. So I'm going in and trying to add another layer of the yellow and also make those yellow ones a little bit longer than the white ones. My thought process was those yellow flowers, those yellow petals should be maybe a little bit in the background, so they'd be a little bit bigger than the center ones, which would be the white ones. So let's try that. Making sure to dry my layers in between each application. And it ends up taking me a couple of coats to get the coverage that I want of this yellow on this center flower. So now with the thought process of how I did the center flower, I thought maybe the other two flowers, I'll do the orange petals as the underneath petals and have the yellow ones be on top. So I'm going in and darkening up that orange. And I end up having to do a couple of coats of the orange as well, just to get the coverage that I want, because the purple of that background was shining through. You may like that transparency. I personally wanted it more opaque. Now I'm adding the shorter yellow petals in front. Now if you're using a heavy body acrylic paint, you might not have to do as many layers as what I'm doing. I'm using craft acrylic paint. I really like using craft acrylic paints because they're cheap. You can get them very inexpensive. I get them at dollar stores. And they almost always have them in stock. So for me, it's kind of value for money. I know it's weird. I'm using more paint because I have to do more layers, but I feel like it's a better value. And maybe it's not, but I've got more expensive paints and I don't use them because I feel like I don't know, maybe I just feel like my skill level isn't at that level to use them. I just feel like I have more fun and I'm less stressed over making mistakes with the craft acrylic paint. So I'm debating if I want to add purple in here. I decide not yet. Let's add more of the yellow and get some more opacity out of those yellow petals because they were still fairly transparent. But I want my flowers and the background to have some sort of cohesion between them, and right now the flowers are looking kind of just like they're like their own little entity, which is fine. But again, I'm experimenting, I'm playing, I'm still thinking in the back of my mind, how can I make these flowers better? So you can see there I just did another coat of the yellow. And now they're at the opacity that I like. So now I decide to go in with the purple acrylic paint that I used in the background. And at first I had a little bit too much paint on the brush, and I ended up using a drier brush stroke and just going on the center of each one of those petals. Just to give it more detail, more interest. Again, just playing, experimenting. I won't know unless I try it. I may like it, I may not. But there's always another page to do more experiments on behind this one. And when you run out of pages in one book, you can always go and get yourself another book or another piece of paper. So that added some depth to the flowers. But now let's work on that center flower. Let's bring those petals, those white ones, to the front of the flower instead of having them buried in behind. And since I have the white paint on my brush right now, I'm using again a dry stroke, so I've got very little paint on the brush. And just adding little highlights and just kind of randomly around the edges of the leaves, just to brighten it up. Sometimes I add it on the tips, sometimes I don't. Decide that the petals in the back look like they're not part of the flower anymore because they don't have any kind of deepness to them. So let's add some purple to the back flowers as well, to the centers of them. Again, using a dry brush stroke. Now I take that pink, because I feel like I want to tie some of that pink back into the page a little bit better. And using the same sort of technique, I add pink to that middle flower. I thought that was a perfect opportunity on top of those white petals just to add a little bit more punch of color. Just being really loose with the lines, not trying to make perfect ovals or make them perfect at the end. I want them to be really kind of rough and ragged looking. The paint strokes that I'm doing on the insides of these flowers. And again, with these petals in the back, now they need to have a little bit of darkness added to them. Now in hindsight, I probably should have done those back flowers with the darkness to them when I actually painted the petals, but I didn't think of doing this until after I had already done all of the light colored petals on top. So I'm just going in and doing it at the time that it occurred to me to do. Now it's time to do the centers of these flowers. And I haven't used these Q-tips in a long time. I had them in a box. You can see that they've got paint on them, but it's old dried up paint. So I just dip the Q-tips that are held together with an elastic band into the acrylic paint and just randomly add some dots to the centers of the flowers. Just experimenting, see how these turn out. Now I'm going to use the other end that has the dried paint on it and do it with the white over top of the black. I didn't bother drying the black paint in between. If you wanted them to be bolder, like the white to be brighter, then you could dry it in between. But I just kind of wanted to get the colors to all kind of play and mingle and have like a sort of a blurry-ish type of effect. Did the same thing with the hot pink there. And now I felt like it needed just a little bit more something. So I do some black splatter onto the page, again using the toothbrush and running it off the edge of my finger. And there we go. My goal today was to paint flowers. And for a change, it actually turned into a page with flowers. So woohoo! I like it. I love the colors. Techniques could use some improvement, but we'll work on that on the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.